So we do have a
Welcome, Ricky.
quorum now, so I am going to call to order the meeting of the Dartmouth Conservation Commission for Tuesday, December 5, 2023. We have 5 commissioners present, which is enough for a quorum. We also are conducting this meeting remotely as a result of the governor's further extension for hybrid remote meeting options for municipalities. That was signed by her on March 29, 2023, and it extends the option until March 31, 2025. Our remote access public hearings are accessible for live interaction, and that can be done by the raise your hand feature, which should be at the bottom of your screen, and if all else fails, the wave your hand feature at your camera. Once recognized, we'll then ask you to unmute yourself, or we can have you unmuted from DCTV. Otherwise, we'd ask that you remain muted so we do not hear background noise during either presentation by someone else or discussion. We'll now move, and Nat's here as well. So we have 6 commissioners here, and that's what we're going to get tonight because Jim has already said he will not be present. So the first item of business is there are administrative items. The first is the approval of minutes from November 14, 2023. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second,
Motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
yes,
and Nat.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well, so that passes unanimously. The next is the approval of the field trip reports of November 28, 2023. May I have a motion to that effect?
So
so
moved.
moved.
Second.
You have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. The third administrative matter is to receive the minutes of November 28, 2023.
so
Motion
moved.
to that- A motion with a second vote.
Second.
Roll call vote. Nat,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
Richard,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to our field trip reports, and the first is a request for a certificate of compliance with DEP file 15-1995. That's RCC 23-56. It's from Paul Brightman for work to construct a single-family home that was never initiated on land described as map 167, lot 57. It's otherwise known as 1 Bartlett Street. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
As stated in the, as you read it in, this was for a single-family home development. This order of conditions was issued, I believe, in 2008, as you can tell by the lower file number. The work was never accomplished. I sent an aerial photo of the site, and it's fully vegetated. That photo was as of May of this year. And upon site inspection, found the aerial to be consistent with ground conditions. Staff is recommending a complete certificate of compliance.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions by any commissioner? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
so moved.
Have a second.
Second.
You have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Patty,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second field trip report is a request for a certificate of compliance with DEP file 15-2575. That's RCC 23-57 from Manise LLC for work including single-family home and garage and grading and utilities. It's on land described as map 138, lot 23, and that's 101 Arnold Street. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, conducted a site visit on Friday, December 1st. Single-family home was constructed. The wetland area was protected by fence and enhanced with plantings of trees and various wetland shrubs. and staff is recommending a complete certificate of compliance.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have a question of staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion. So Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes the field trip reports. We're moving on to our public hearings. And the first three public hearings are all related, although they are separate. So as we have done in the past, I will read each one, but we will have discussion on the first one, and then the discussion on the first one will carry forward for second and third. First is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2659, that's NOI 23-27. It's on the notice of intent from Potter Street Solar LLC for a single-family dwelling and a ground-mounted solar panel array on the rear portion of the lot within bordering land subject to flooding in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 138, lot 144, and it's located on Potter Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Patty,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I see we have both Attorney Marsh and Christian Farland here. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Christian Fallon, Principal Engineer and President with Fallon Corp. Here tonight representing Potter Street LLC. The last meeting, we had, Mr. Garrett had asked for us to continue the meeting in order for him to carefully review all the revised plans and comments from DEP in order to put order of conditions together. So we did permit the extension, and we are here tonight hoping the commission can vote on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Farland, and that is a correct rendition of what we did, what we, the applicant did last meeting. Mark, have you had an opportunity to review the DEP communique, which came in the day of the last meeting, as well as the file in general?
Yes, I have, Mr. Chairman, and all in attendance this evening. I have spent an inordinate amount of time, as Christian cited last time, in reviewing numerous issues related to this project. And it was, and I'm not going to reiterate everything that we have discussed in the numerous public hearings before. It would just be regurgitation of old business. I sat and I pondered this and came to the conclusion that based on what we know, it would really not be in the best interest of the commission to vote to not approve this project in whatever form they chose for a number of reasons. And therefore, staff is recommending that the project be approved with a set of special conditions. Those special conditions include most of our standard conditions, but given the unique circumstances of this site and the two abutting sites that are part of this overall program, I have modified the conditions somewhat, which I think are reasonable and protective to our interests, the applicant's interests, and the public's interest in as a whole. I'd like to do is I'd like to read just the modifications to the conditions that I've written, so that everybody understands where I am coming from in my recommendation to the Conservation Commission. And again, as the chairman said, this recommendation is consistent with file numbers 2659, 2660, and 2658, the three filings related to this solar program. At first opening the order conditions with the general conditions and the stormwater conditions as required by DEP. And we typically then add special conditions beyond. Prior to inserting those standard conditions, I have written a preamble to try to establish the facts and findings that we know in this case. I will read those. First, the applicant provided a phase 1 site assessment report to the record and 2 separate subsurface assessment reports, including test pit logs and limited chemical analyses. These reports indicated both substantive and trace presence of both solid and hazardous waste, allegedly in an ash film. Analytical test results were limited to 5 peripheral test pits out of the 18 that were dug. No analytical results were presented from the test pits within the core of the fill footprint, and no groundwater samples were taken or analyzed. Second finding, based on the subsurface findings presented, the Mass DEP Solid Waste has determined that the fill to be typical anthropogenic material and states that the site does not appear to be a former solid waste landfill or dumping ground. In addition, the MADEP Wetland Division, at the time of last year's filings, questioned whether the fill footprint filled historic wetlands and what was the jurisdictional filing requirements at the time of those fills, but did issue a file number nonetheless. 3, a review of the documents of record to this order, test pit logs and visual observations of November 14th of wetland indicating both hydric soils, organic and mineral types, and groundwater at or near elevations of the pre-existing native soils. The evidence clearly suggests that historic wetlands were filled on site. Owning the land at the time, the applicant was not provided with any dumping records or bills of lading for dumping events that displaced any pre-existing wetlands. However, a review of historical aerial photographs clearly indicates much of the fill footprint was established prior to jurisdictional protections of wetlands or any associated regulatory filing requirements. Also, knowing of these fills over the period, the town of Dartmouth took no action related to these activities at any time previous to this notice of intent filing. 4, in an effort to mitigate for a portion of these probable wetland impacts, the applicant has offered a plan to eradicate 11,900 square feet of nuisance invasive species on portions of map 138, lots 144-1 and 144-2, and to enhance these buffer zone areas with native shrub plantings as presented as part of the plans and documents of record to this order. 5, Town Council was queried by the Commission as to the applicability of General Condition 7 of this order relating to on-site fill composition. Their opinion was the general condition does not apply to historic fills within the proposed project footprint, but only to new fill imported to the site for the proposed project. 6, a third-party stormwater review was conducted and approved of the systems as provided on the plan of record. Given these and the fact that this is a tributary is part of the Buttonwood Brook subwatershed, a subwatershed that has been subject of long-term water quality enhancement objectives and wetland protection performance standards geared towards both surface and groundwater protection, the Commission adds these special conditions to this order. I then go on to include our standard conditions 20 through, let me get this right now, 20 through 40 intact, and then I modify special condition 41. And I modify it to include a subsection C. These are 41 is typically our restoration conditions. And the new subsection C reads, The proposed mitigation plan prepared by Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC shall commence prior to any on-site construction or earthwork activity commencing. Periodic coordination with the conservation agent shall be ongoing throughout the life of the mitigation plan implementation, and upon completion, the conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of said work can be made to recommend adjustments and or satisfactory completion and success to the commission. And then modified special condition 42, which reads, prior to any on-site construction or earthwork activity commencing, the following activities shall also be required. A groundwater monitoring program shall be implemented to include 3 monitoring wells, one located up gradient at a location near test pit 23-3 on map 138 lot 144-2, and 2 along the down gradient edge of the fill edge, one proximal to test pit 23-9 and a second proximal to test pit 23-5. Selected locations shall be subject to the approval of the conservation agent prior to installation. Boring logs shall be prepared and submitted to the conservation agent within 3 weeks of installation. During the installation, grab soil samples will be taken from each soil horizon encountered in each boring. Groundwater will also be sampled from each monitoring well upon equilibration of the water table within each well. The analytical program for both groundwater and soil analysis shall include general chemistry for groundwater to include temperature, pH, turbidity, conductivity, chloride, dissolved oxygen, biological oxygen demand, chemical oxygen demand, ammonia, nitrate, TKN, that would be total keldol nitrogen, and total phosphorus. Heavy metals will be analyzed for both groundwater and soils to include lead, nickel, cadmium, iron, manganese, and zinc. And organics for both groundwater and soils will include PAHs, VOCs, PCBs, and pesticides. And all shall be required from samples taken from the 3 monitoring wells. B, groundwater sampling and analysis cited in special condition 42A, which is what I just read, shall continue twice annually, mid-May and mid-November, for the first 2 years following the initial project penetration into the fill. Should these subsequent analyses show no groundwater impacts beyond the baseline conditions established during the pre-construction analysis sampling shall cease. Should post-construction impacts downgrade in the downgradient well samples indicate impacts that exceed regulatory thresholds, all on-site activity and power generation shall be taken offline until the impact is identified and remedied. C, the applicant shall stake out all the property lines and the on-site extent of FEMA flood designations. Special condition 43. During both the construction process and long-term operations, should any solid waste or hazardous material or hazardous waste be uncovered or unearthed, all on-site work or operations shall immediately cease and desist until the materials have been properly collected, contained, removed, and disposed of off-site in an environmentally appropriate manner. And then special condition 44 is our typical special condition 42, which just reiterates placing a sign with the file number at the project. So having read all that, staff recommends approval of the project subject to these special conditions.
Thank you. Mark, are you completed?
I am complete. Well, let me just add, I did send all of these conditions to the commissioners, previously, so hopefully you had a chance to read them.
I do.
Chairman, this is Jim Marsh. I'd like an opportunity to look at these conditions. I think a lot of them dealing with the soil and groundwater monitoring is unnecessary. I see Mark has put a lot of these in there. There's been a lot of borings already done, or sorry, test pitting that's already been done. We've explained to him the unnecessary need for a groundwater testing at this property. Look, the what's been proposed is not going to impact groundwater. If any soil is impacted, we've agreed to manage that if it's going to be removed off site. We're not going to go out there and put in monitoring wells. It's just over the top. But I'd like to have an opportunity to look at this order of conditions and be able to comment. I don't know. I'm a little blown away as to some of these conditions that are being put in. You've had ample opportunity. We had you out there. We had the state out there. They observed what was in these pits. Again, the project is limited to some helical piles and a utility line. We're not going much below the surface here. If anything is in the ground that was put there historically, your job as a commission is just to simply look at what we're proposing and the impacts to your resource areas in the interest of the act. This is well beyond that.
So let me see if I get this.
Mr. Chairman, if I may also.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm a little, I don't know if upset's the word or not, but we've done everything that the commission has asked and Mr. Garrett has asked. I feel we've definitely gone above and beyond this application, and the fact is we're drilling helical piles 3 feet down into the ground, which is negligible impacts to the site. And what some of these special conditions are asking has nothing to do with what we are proposing. And if this is the case that the board votes tonight, we're certainly going to appeal these conditions because we feel they are this is the first time I'm hearing them, which we gave you additional time. I would have hoped we would have had these conditions a week before if they were going to be this specific, which would have gave us more time to, comment and work with Mr. Garrett. But certainly I'm not agreeing to these conditions. And if the board wants to vote tonight, we're going to appeal it. And we've already had DEP on site. DEP already determined that what we're proposing has negligible impacts and it's not a solid waste site. So the fact that you're even putting solid waste into the special conditions should be omitted. Because we did everything you guys wanted. And I'm a little upset, to be honest. I think this is wasting everybody's time right now.
Well, if I heard Mr. Marsh correctly, he wanted an opportunity to review in writing the conditions that were just articulated verbally. Is that correct, Attorney Marsh?
It is. I want to make sure that there's nothing else in there than what's been stated by the agent here. I want to ensure for my own client that there's not other conditions, special conditions that sort of fall in line with these conditions that we think are out of line.
Well, I don't disagree with the fact that you should have an opportunity to look at the special conditions. And it's difficult, I know, to try to capture everything when it's being spoken. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Okay, it doesn't mean that the commission, in my view, doesn't mean the commission will disregard these conditions, but I do think it's appropriate for you to have an opportunity to review them in writing. And I think we can get you that, so you will have it tomorrow at the latest to review. And I think that
I think Mr. Chairman, I think, professionalism is, Mr. Garrett asked for the plans and revised submittals a week before the meeting. It would be nice for us to have the same in return, not the night of the meeting trying to review things. So yeah, I would certainly like to ask for a continuance for tonight's meeting for us to review these. And
I agree with you,
what-
Mr. Farland.
While we have everybody on the meeting here, I also would like to hear everybody's thoughts on this as well, because I don't agree to probably half of the special conditions on here. So I don't know what the next steps are gonna be. I don't want to come back in 2
Well-
weeks and we'll be at the same stance as we are now.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Go ahead.
speak in response to this. Okay, first of all, the first 6 things I read are not conditions. Those are facts. We have talked about them. We all agree with them. Okay, I have acknowledged that the fill has not been considered a landfill or a dumping ground. That doesn't say that there isn't contamination in there. Their own test results say that there are trace amounts of contamination. I go on to say, and what is really critical is that this subwatershed has been undergoing extensive analysis by the Buzzards Bay Coalition for water quality issues. This was one of the ones selected. It's been studied for 30 years. Okay, the groundwater analysis, that condition that I put in there, is a surety to make sure that nothing does get released. If nothing gets released, it's no big deal. It's a 2-year thing. That's not that great an impact to the project, I don't believe. I think it's a surety to protect water quality in a watershed that is being subjected to a great amount of analysis and a great amount of discussion. I think the only issue here, if I heard Attorney Marsh, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, and Christian, is that you don't like the fact that I put a short-term groundwater monitoring program in. Other than that, everything else we talked about, staking out the property lines, and containing any waste that you come across during your operations and removing it from site, those are things we talked about, and we all agreed to it.
We did agree to
I-
that, you're right.
I have no problem with that.
Let me finish, please. The angst may be over the groundwater sampling program. Okay, I feel it's necessary not to be punitive to you, but so that we can monitor it, because there have been comments made of a certain amount of uncertainty. All DEP said was it wasn't a landfill, it wasn't a solid waste landfill. Hazardous waste people did not chime in. And so, okay, all I'm asking for, or all I'm recommending is a short-term groundwater monitoring program, just so we can assure that no releases do occur. If they don't occur, it's done. This is not a forever program. This is during construction. It's construction monitoring. I don't feel that that's unreasonable.
Well, the fact is, we're not doing any work in the groundwater. The fact is, there's an abutting piece of land that's owned by the town, so if you want to put monitoring wells in, why don't you put them in on that site?
We're not
Why should
doing
we have to put in
project
monitoring
on that
wells?
site. There's no project on that site. There's a
But
project.
we're not impacting groundwater, Mark. We're not,
Oh, but you could be destabilizing conditions. You could be. Hear me. I didn't say you will be. I said you could be destabilizing situations that could cause a release. That's all I'm saying. And I'm trying to ensure
Okay.
that if that happens, we are aware of it and we can deal with it.
okay, well, we disagree with that statement.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not
I
a
get
fact.
it. I get it, but I'm not imposing massive conditions on you and changing the game plan. I'm not. I acknowledge what the site is. I acknowledge that the jurisdictions that control those wastes have not taken jurisdiction. I'm fine with that. I understand that. Our job as a commission is still to protect ground and surface waters and wetlands. Okay, and those are adjacent and downstream of your site, and all I did was put a condition in to protect those resources. And, you know, I stand by it. If the commission disagrees, well, that's their privilege and right.
Chairman, may I speak for a second?
Sure, Mr. Cussin, you may go ahead and speak.
Tim Custin, 46 Elijah Lane, Dartmouth, Mass. That the condition on the groundwater testing is basically it's a project killer. The way the condition is written, Mark says that if anything's found, you stop generation, it makes the project unfinanceable. It will kill the project. And to Christian's point, we would have no choice but to appeal it. The project never gets off the ground with that condition, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comment? I mean, I certainly think it would be appropriate to give the applicant an opportunity to review in writing. I mean, it sounds like there will be a disagreement, no matter how much time is given, but I still think to me, it's like a due process issue. I think you're entitled to it, Attorney Marsh. I think you're entitled to the chance to look at it before you make your decision of what you want to do.
Thank you.
Or the commission votes on it, because then at that point, it's a done deal. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that.
I would agree with you, Mike, that I think it's a very reasonable request to allow the applicant and their engineers and lawyers to look at this and review it. And so I think it's reasonable for them to come back, to continue and come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Does any other commissioner have any comments on this? Is there anyone in the audience that hasn't already spoken on it that wants to speak on this request? Okay, I don't see.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I mean, we have the engineer, we have the attorney, we have the developer on right now, and I'm just letting the commission know that if that's not striked from the conditions of approval, we're gonna appeal it. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody needs more time, I guess it would be up to the commission. If the commission feels they want more time to review.
No, we didn't
the
need more
conditions.
time. This request was.
Cause
made by your attorney. Time out. This
I don't-
request was made by your attorney. We're trying to
Yeah.
accommodate your attorney's request. It wasn't
Okay.
made by us. If you want us to vote tonight, we will, okay? But your attorney asked, and I think it was appropriate, for an opportunity
Yeah.
to review this, okay? So that's what we're
Okay.
trying to give your attorney. And you still have the right to appeal anything you want. We don't take that away from you, okay? We're just trying to afford your attorney the opportunity to have in writing before him exactly what Mr. Garrett read a moment ago. So he has an opportunity to pinpoint concerns, objections, and work with you and work with your client. That's really your mutual client. That's what it comes down to. If you don't want that, if that's what you want to waive, you want to go forward with a vote, we're happy to accommodate you on that. But I'm trying to give you the opportunity to do what your attorney wanted to do. So
Yeah, I
mean,
think the only condition I heard was the groundwater monitoring. But yeah, I think it makes sense to have Attorney Marsh review all the conditions, but off the top of my head, that was the big one.
well, I think it's, your attorney, I think, is a very capable and in my experience, well-respected attorney. And I think his request is very reasonable. And I think it makes sense. You've gone through all of this. You want him to have the ability to read the conditions carefully and then to circle back with you and the mutual client to make sure you understand what all the concerns are and the nuances of that. And then at the next meeting, you're not waiving any rights to appeal. That wasn't the condition of the request for the continuance by any means. Okay, so we weren't trying to take that away from you, but I do think it allows you the opportunity to think about what's been said, and I think it's a reasonable request by Attorney Marsh and one that I would make if I were in his shoes. So I think, unless you want to waive it, I'm willing to go to a vote on the continuance.
Mr. Chairman, permission to speak.
Yes, go right ahead.
So I certainly understand the position of the applicant. I also understand Mr. Garrett's reasoning as well. And so, assuming we don't vote tonight, I would just ask that maybe both sides try to find middle ground and encourage you to seek that out and move towards it if you can, if it exists.
Well, I think that's an opportunity that this next, what do we have? 2 weeks now, because the next meeting is on December the 19th. And so there's an opportunity if the conditions are sent to Mr. Marsh, or Attorney Marsh, excuse me, so he has them no later than tomorrow. That'll give plenty of time for their review and commentary, and if they want to have further discussion with Mr. Garrett, they're welcome to it. Okay, they're welcome to it. And I too would encourage that, Matt. I think that's a good suggestion on your part. But that being said, they need to have it in front of them in order to have any meaningful discussion. And I think that was a very reasonable request to say, well, we heard it, but I know myself, with something that's that detailed and that I would want to see it in writing. I do better retention and analytically when I read it rather than hear it. So that's my feeling. And if they don't want that, if the applicant rather not have that continuance, okay too. That's their call to whether I'm trying to accommodate a request. So you want us to go forward on a vote for continuance?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't see anyone else in the audience that wanted to be heard. But this meeting will not be closed. The public hearing will not be closed tonight if we vote to continue until Tuesday, December 19th, 2023 at 7 p.m. So commissioners, what's your pleasure on that request?
Make a motion to continue until December 19th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
We have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote for this. What we do for all. So Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. So this public hearing, the very first public hearing on file number 15-2659 has been continued until Tuesday, December 19, 2023. We're now going to take up matters 2 and 3. Matter 2 is a continued public hearing, 15-2660, NOI 23-25. It's on the notice of intent from Potter Street Solar LLC for a single-family dwelling and a ground-mounted solar panel array on the rear portion of the lot within bordering land subject to flooding and the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. It's on land which is map 138, lot 144-1. It's on Potter Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
so moved.
A second on the motion.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. As I mentioned at the outset, the discussion for the first would carry through to second and third. So I will now entertain a motion to continue the public hearing on DEP file 15-2660 until our Tuesday, December 19, 2023 public hearing at
so
7.
moved.
Second.
We have a second motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. The third public hearing is continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2658. That's NOI 23-26. It's on the notice of intent from Potter Street Solar LLC, proposing a ground-mounted solar panel array on the rear portion of the lot within bordering land subject to flooding and the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. It's on land described as map 138, lot 144-2. It's on Potter Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
so
So
moved.
moved. Second.
With a seconded motion, roll call vote. Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes,
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Again, I'll entertain a motion to continue public hearing on DEP file 15-27. I'm sorry, on DEP file 15-2658 until our Tuesday, December 19, 2023 meeting at 7 p.m.
so moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, can we get those conditions out to Attorney Marsh and Mr. Farland?
First thing tomorrow morning, first thing I'll do.
Thank you very much.
I'll send
Thank you,
them to
Mark.
the-
Thank you, Chair.
I'll send them to Attorney Marsh. I'll send them to Christian and I'll send them to, is Tim still here? I'll send a copy to Tim Cussin too, so the three of you can have. them.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Have a nice night.
Okay.
Right.
Good night. Okay, our fourth public hearing is a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2705. That's NOI 23-43. It's on the notice of intent from John P. Kopacheski to construct a stone wall in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and a single pole osprey nest in the salt marsh. It's on land described as map 112, lot 30 at 16 Bourne Place. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion to do a roll call vote on this. And Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we did get a request from the applicant's engineer, Mr. Sean Leach, to dismiss this notice of intent without prejudice. And this was actually in compliance with the partial certificate of compliance that we issued at the last meeting. So they're actually doing what we asked them to do. But I'll entertain any discussion if you want to ask. Otherwise, I entertain a motion to dismiss the notice of intent on DEP file 15-2705 NOI 23-43 without prejudice.
Make a motion to dismiss NOI number 15-2705. That's file number 15-2705 NOI 2343. To dismiss it without prejudice.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second on the motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote on this. Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, on a point of order, the email actually said withdraw without prejudice. I don't know if dismiss and withdraw are synonymous.
Sure they are, but if you want us to go back and revote that, I don't have a problem. doing
Well,
that.
I can just change the language in the minutes to reflect what they specifically requested.
I think we should do exactly what they requested, so it parallels the letter or the email that came in.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
What we're basically saying is that this notice of intent is now gone, but they don't
Okay.
they don't have to wait to refile a new one.
Right.
Do we need to close out this particular motion?
Well, it's already been voted on.
Okay, so we'll just make another motion.
Yeah, I think we can say, I'll entertain a motion to amend the previous vote to replace the word dismiss with the word withdraw.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion seconded, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
and Nat.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. I think that cleans it up properly. We're moving on to page 2, and the fifth public hearing is on DEP file 15-2709. That's NOI 23-51. It's on the notice of intent from Kenneth Steen. care of Pascomanset Land Company to construct a medical office building, 17,544 square feet, and associated parking, lighting, subsurface utilities, and a stormwater management system in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 68, lot 34-4. It's otherwise known as 491 Quants Corner Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
So-
moved.
A second on that motion.
Second,
We have a seconded motion. We'll vote, roll call. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
yes,
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. And we have someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant. Do we?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ken Steen, the applicant on the notice. Mr. Phil Cordero, he's my engineer. He looks like he's queued up, but maybe he left the camera for a moment.
He
But
might
in
have.
any case, good evening, and thank you for the hearing this evening, and as well as the members. Mr. Garrett, I think we left off with essentially ready to conclude this matter at the last meeting, with Mark having a reservation in a sense that he wanted to review some of the modifications that he had requested previously. So I assume that at this point, Mark's had that opportunity, and I'll just turn it over to Mark. I believe it's your show, sir.
Mark?
Yep, ready to go. Yep, Ken is correct. I was pretty much supportive of the project. I had requested via email that some shrubs be planted along the eastern side of the building. I did not have a record of seeing those plans. Mr. Cordero was very kind in resending me plans. I had no record of receiving them, looked at them. They looked okay. So what I've done is I put together a recommendation to support the project with standard orders of conditions as modified as per the plans dated November 20th and 27th, 2003. The 27th date is the modification on the planting plan. And because they're doing planting, we have, the replication conditions, which I've modified a little bit, since this isn't a replication, but more just an added buffering. So I've included our standard conditions 20 through 40, and it added the following special conditions. Special condition 41. The shrub planting area along the eastern side of the proposed building shall also be secured with properly staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence and regrading to natural contours prior to planting. All unstable bare ground shall be seeded with the standard conservation or erosion seed control seed mix. 42. Upon completion of the shrub plantings along the eastern side of the proposed building, a conservation agent shall be notified as to conduct an inspection of the plantings, and if necessary, may require additional plantings where planting densities appear too sparse. 43. Aside from the restoration work authorized under this order, no additional activities of any type shall occur within the 25-foot of the delineated wetland line of record established under this order, unless authorized in the future by the commission or an agent. 44. Conservation Commission shall require the minimum woody plant specifications to include all individual shrub sizes of no less than 3 to 5 gallon pots or balls as proposed. 45. Monitoring shall be done and reported to the conservation staff following each growing season until 75% vegetative cover has been achieved or throughout the complete term of this order. All plantings that fail to survive through the first full growing season for any reason shall be replaced by the applicant or their successors or assigns. And 46 is our typical 42, just the posting of a file number sign. So I'm recommending approval with those conditions, and the conditions that I read are just modified our standard replication and replanting conditions.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question of either the applicant or staff?
Just one, what's the date of the most recent plan?
November 27th.
Well, Patty, it's a combination of plans. They updated a couple of sheets on November 27th, but most of the plan set that we received is dated November 20th, so they carries both dates.
And you would like that in any standard to reflect that, both dates to reflect?
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see anyone. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
With a second motion that calls for a roll call vote. And Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty. Patty,
Oh, sorry, didn't hear you. Yes.
yeah, Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, what is your pleasure on this request?
Make a motion for a standard order of conditions according to the plans submitted November 20th, 2023 and November 27th, 2023 with the conditions as described by Mr. Garrett.
We have a motion. Can we have a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Good evening.
Thank
you.
Good evening, Kim.
Our sixth public hearing, continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2711. It's on the notice of intent from Jacob and Mary Kate White to construct an addition to a single-family home in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 66, lot 2-87. It's also known as 18 Hummingbird Trail. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. And who this evening is here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening. This is Terry McGovern from Zenith Land Surveyors here on behalf of the Roys. And I will go right to sharing the screen and putting the plan up so that I can walk you through the project. Okay, and hopefully you can see the proposed plan up on the screen.
Yep.
The Roys live in a kind of a standard Cape style house, and what they wish to do is to put this expanded addition off to the left side of their house and within an existing cleared lawn area. It's going to be matching pretty much to the roof line of the existing house with a basement level and a deck connecting to the existing deck on the side, with a separate entrance going off to the left. And grading really will be pretty much returned to where it is now. It'll be a walkout rear similar to the existing house. I'll show you a picture of the house in a moment. But it's going to be some 46 feet from the closest point of the wetlands, wetland flag number 4, kind of to the back left corner. And we're proposing during the process of construction to wrap an 18-inch silt sock from the existing deck around the area of construction until that foundation has been backfilled and loamed and seeded. A connection through from the well through to the house will need to be relocated slightly. It appears to come in on the left side of that house now. So that will be a short amount of trenching that will take place out to the limits of the erosion control. No other work other than a construction entrance is proposed in the front yard. The septic system was repaired, replaced in 2019. And Mr. Garrett had been out and looked at the flags last week, and we actually delayed a week because of either a tax issue that they hadn't paid or some municipal fee that kind of crept up at the last minute. So in between that and having Mark review the flags, we opted to bump off a week. And I will note that when I went back to replace the flags, while a couple of the stubs were there, I made a note to Mark, what's shown on the plan is flags 1 and 2. I actually put stakes in the ground because from the time of the original delineation, which was a couple of years ago, before the Roys owned the property and was done in conjunction with the repair of the septic system, it looked like a little bit of brush cutting had taken place in this area. And I can't necessarily put it on the Roys. There's some leaves back here as well. And they've only purchased the property recently. But I did make Mark aware that he wasn't going to find any old stubs for these two spots, and that I staked the location instead because it looked like some of that brush had been nipped out of there. Again, we're going into an existing cleared area, and I don't anticipate any change in the grading of the site when it's done. The slope on the side of the house will continue down, basically be regraded in the same manner that it exists now. And if I can pull it up, I will see if I can pull up may have lost it down in the corner, but pull up the Google Earth. If you can see it, if it did come up on the screen, this is the front view of the property. And again, it's going to go in this wide open area immediately to the left of the house along here. And you can see where the front area is fairly flat, and then it slopes down kind of at a moderate slope and then terraces out across the backyard. So that's the only any area that's going to receive any disturbances. This is immediate left side of the house. And with that, I will stop sharing and step back and entertain any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, I would like to hear staff's comments on this request.
I think Terry covered it pretty accurately in terms of what's transpired over the past couple of weeks. The project is within an existing lawn area. Yes, it is within buffer zone, but not really anywhere that close to wetlands. The wetland line that I flagged 5 years ago is still pretty much a reasonable line. Terry is correct that there was some activity, very minimal. There was some slash piles and some leaves. I have asked the Roys to remove them by hand. They said they would. So having said all that, I am prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions per the plan dated October 31st, 2023. I would also note that we have the condition of entrenched wattles and or hay bales and silt fence. The detail on the plan did not show it as being entrenched, but that will be a condition as part of our standard order.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question of either the applicant or staff? Is there anyone here this evening to be heard on this request? Don't see anybody. At this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We're going to do roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, what is your pleasure on this request on DEP file 15-2711?
Make a motion for standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted on October 31st, 2023, with the conditions as described by Mr. Garrett.
And that would include the entrenched wattles and hay bales, correct?
Yes,
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Joe,
Yes.
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Patty,
yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Same to you.
Oh, thank you.
We have our final public hearing, which is a public hearing on DEP 15-2712, NOI 23-52. It's on the notice of intent from Manfeld Katz to construct a single-family home and septic system in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 56, lot 17-5. It's otherwise known as 5 Digger Drive. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Patty,
Yes,
Matt,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. And is there somebody here this evening? It looks like Chris Gilbert's here on behalf of the applicant. Chris, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Chris Gilbert from Farland Corp Engineering, representing the applicant and their property at 5 Digger Drive. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, it is. Go right ahead.
All right, this is 5 Digger Drive. It's currently a wooded vacant lot. It's one of the last undeveloped lots on Digger Drive, which is a small subdivision off of Hicksville Road, just north of 195. In the rear of the lot here, the green line is the delineated wetland line that was marked out by the Conservation Office. Here in pink is a 25-foot buffer to that line. And then in blue here, we have the 100-foot wetland buffer. The applicant is looking to propose a single-family dwelling shown here. We have a paved driveway here, septic system located here, and then several utilities, water, electric, running from Digger Drive. The dwelling, we're doing a walkout basement in the rear of the dwelling. This will greatly decrease any grading we need between the dwelling and the wetlands. The dwelling itself, as proposed, is just outside 50 feet to the wetlands. And then the driveway, septic system, and utilities are actually all just outside the 100-foot buffer to the wetlands. As shown in orange here is the erosion control and limit of work. You can see it extends up to the 25-foot buffer here that allows for lawn space and recreation in the rear of the dwelling. I will note the septic system is currently under review by the Board of Health, but as noted before, it's outside the 100-foot buffer, so we wouldn't anticipate any revisions changing work within the buffer. That is about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. Mark, I would like to hear staff's comments on this request.
Yeah, I think Chris summed it up. Adam and I flagged that wetland a while back. The area is a very scrubby, weedy area. It is one of the last, if not the last lot that is undeveloped out there. The work is in the buffer zone. It certainly is approvable with conditions. So staff is recommending standard order of conditions as per the plan dated November 2nd, 2023.
Thank you very much. Does any commissioner have any question of either the applicant or Mark? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this request? I don't see any. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, what's your pleasure on this request on DEP file 15-2712?
Make a motion for standard order of conditions per the plan submitted on November 2nd, 2023.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Excuse me. Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the public hearings for this evening. We're now moving on to the items for discussion. We have a $3,500 bill from Gus Reposa for drainage review on file 15-2709. That was Steens. I'll entertain a motion to authorize the payment of the $3,500 drainage review bill from Gus Reposa on file 15-2709.
So moved.
Second.
With a seconded motion, roll call vote. Patty,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. The motion passes unanimously. Mark, do we have any discussion items?
Yeah, I just added a very brief one. Today I started working on the schedule going from January to July of next year for Concom meetings. I think I have avoided holidays. I think I've avoided town meetings. I just want to make sure that the dates are absolutely correct and the filing dates are absolutely correct. I will forward that to the commissioner's attention, probably in your packet, for the next meeting, and we can vote and we can get that posted prior to the end of the year, so everybody can start planning out their schedules accordingly.
Okay, sounds good. Any enforcement issues we need to discuss?
None tonight.
Okay, and I have no further items to add, so at this point, unless any commissioner has something, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second. We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. We're gonna go Joe,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that motion passes unanimously.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.